Welcome back to the Course Creation Mama podcast. I am your host, Lindsay Bowden, and today we have a really epic interview with actually one of my students in my program, Hey Online Course. He also did a one-on-one coaching intensive with me, Steve Buch, and he is a Google Sheets expert, which you may be thinking, Google Sheets, what? And he actually is a Google Sheets expert for teachers. So all of my teacher listeners out there, you don't want to miss this one. Steve helps teachers and teacher authors transform Google Sheets spreadsheets into engaging, self-checking digital activities their students love. His activities are super cool if you've never checked them out. They're unlike anything you've ever seen before for your classroom. And he dives into how he got started with Google Sheets, how he became an expert, how he decided to create a course, and then working with me and having a 55K launch, which is incredible. So we are diving into all of that, and I will see you in the episode. All right, everyone, we have Steve Buch here, and I am so excited to dive into all things Google Sheets for educators. So, Steve, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. Hi, I'm Steve Buch, and I help teachers create engaging activities with Google Sheets, which I know sounds pretty crazy, but that's what I do.
Especially if you're not in the education field and you think of Google Sheets as like data, budget, like not education related. Yeah, I love it though. Okay, how did you get started with this? Tell us kind of the story of Google Sheets and education.
Sure. So, definitely, like you said, it is not a tool that is created for educators or by educators or anything like that. Google Sheets, and yes, we're just talking about spreadsheets, like if you think of an Excel spreadsheet. And how I got started on the journey was I started seeing pixel art. And I don't remember exactly where or how I was introduced to it, but at some point I saw pixel art and I was like, wait a minute, like, how are they making this? What program is this in? And if you're not familiar with what pixel art is, it's just an art form. If you think of like classic Nintendo, think of Mario, that's pixel art, where it's just tiny squares that create an image. So teachers were creating these activities where students would type in the correct answer, and then little by little, an image was appearing, like this pixelated image. And I saw one of those, and then I created my first one, and I was hooked. I was like, this is so weird. Google Sheets isn't supposed to be doing stuff like this. We're not supposed to be using it in education. And I think that's why I latched onto it, because it was such a weird tool that teachers weren't using. And then somebody came up with this idea to use it in the classroom. And then I fell in love with it and kind of ran with it. And I am not a Excel person at all. Like, the idea of Google Sheets and Excel spreadsheets prior to that point scared me. I stayed as far away from it as I possibly could, especially when I was looking at data and stuff like that.
Yeah, and if you don't know, Google Sheets and Microsoft Excel, they're the equivalent of each other, just different companies. And okay, so why do teachers use Google products? Like, how do they even stumble upon using Google Sheets?
So
Educators out there.
in general, Google has a platform. I don't know if people are familiar with it, called Google Classroom, and a lot of schools use that. And it's just a method of basically getting content to students. So whether you put together a slideshow or some sort of interactive online, we'll just call it a digital worksheet. So basically a practice sheet. Google Classroom is a way for students to get that content. So the teacher can post it, and then that content is sent out to the students. But there's other platforms as well. So teachers, because Google is free and Google is accessible, a lot of school districts do have Google accounts for their students. So it's easy for students to access that content and easy for teachers to share with their students. So I think that's why Google is so popular. I do know that there are some Microsoft schools out there, and they use solely Microsoft. But I think it's the same idea. Their school chooses to use that platform.
Yeah, it's whatever the school chooses. And if you were a parent during the pandemic and you had a kid in public school, you probably know about at least one of these platforms because you were helping your kid at home navigate Google Classroom or Microsoft 365 or whatever it was. So that a lot of teachers use Google, and like Steve said, it's free. So, okay, so you started creating these Google activities, started with pixel art, and you got really interested. So, how did you start with these activities and then kind of blossom into the Google Sheets expert? How did that happen?
Through a lot of trial and error and a lot of like watching YouTube videos. Sometimes the YouTube videos weren't even in the language that I
Mhm.
speak, and I'm just like trying to watch what they're doing. It was a lot of trial and error and a lot of me trying to go the opposite direction of other people. So when pixel art first came out, it was right around the pandemic, or excuse me, when Google Sheets resources took off, not when they like first started, but when teachers first started using Google Sheets activities, it was right around the pandemic, and everybody was creating this in pixel art, like the visual, the cells pop up, and I went the opposite direction. I was like, well, what if we had the picture already there, and then something happens to the picture, like we turn it into a two-player game or something like that, where students get points. So because I was trying to do it differently than everybody else, it forced me to learn more about it than everybody else. And that's kind of where I just started to realize. And then people were asking me, well, how did you create this? I know how to do this, but I don't know how to do that. And because I was doing things differently, I think that's why I started to become known as that expert, because I wasn't doing what they were used to seeing.
That's so good. I think two things stand out with what you just said. So, number one, you didn't start out as an expert. Like, it's not like we learned this in college as a teacher. It really wasn't a thing back when we were in college, right? So you can become an expert even if you don't feel like you're an expert right now because we have the internet. We can literally learn anything. And I tell people that all the time that are wanting to start some type of online business and they feel like they don't know enough. And I'm like, have you Googled it? Have you got on YouTube? Because you can learn it, you can figure it out, or just get into the program if it's a program you're learning and figure it out. So that's awesome that you kind of started as a novice and now you've become this expert because you took the time to learn. And then also, you talked about how that I just lost my train of thought. I have pregnancy brain for everyone listening. Man, you're not an expert. What, Steve?
You were on a roll
I
there
was on
too.
a roll. I get really passionate about people saying they're not an expert. Remind me what else you said, please.
So that I wasn't an expert and potentially that I was doing stuff differently. I don't know
Yes,
if that was
that's exactly it. Thank you. Everyone just ignore my pregnancy brain. It's just going to come and go as we talk. So yes, how you are doing things differently, because a lot of people, when they go into starting an online business and helping others, they want to copy what everyone else is doing. And if you can do the opposite of that and have your own like proprietary method, then people are going to flock to you because no one else is teaching it the way that you are teaching it. So I love that you said both of those things. Okay, so you have started to become this expert. You have learned all the things. Tell me how you transitioned into wanting to create a course about creating Google Sheets activities for teachers.
sure. So at the time, I was just creating these activities for my classroom, and then I was also creating them to sell on a website called Teachers Pay Teachers. For those that aren't teachers, it's basically, I guess, like Etsy is the best example. It's like Etsy for teachers. You can buy and sell teaching resources like projects, like lesson plans, anything that you could think that a teacher would need for their classroom, you can get on that website. So that's where I started, and I was working with somebody at the time, and they suggested like, hey, why not reach out and branch out from just selling on Teachers Pay Teachers? You can look into creating a course, creating a mini course, creating a membership, creating some sort of other offer. And I was like, okay, I feel like I could do this. And that's when I kind of took the leap, and I actually created a mini course first, which was on, ironically, pixel art, which is the thing that I was kind of going the opposite way of.
Yeah.
But that was just to kind of test the market, to see if people were interested in learning more and paying to learn more. So that's the first thing I created. And then I took that data and took some of that revenue and said, okay, I can purchase to have a platform to host my course and all that stuff. So that's kind of how I got started into the course. It was just testing the market and seeing if people wanted to learn that, and then just kind of running with it.
Yeah, and you said you had teachers that were asking you like how you are doing these particular types of resources, right? So you knew there was potentially a market, but just because people are asking you doesn't always mean they'll pay you for that information. So
Sure.
I always tell people, and I love that you did a mini offer first because I recommend that to a lot of people. Start with something smaller at a smaller price point so that people can learn from you and kind of get to know you before spending money on an entire online course. So that's great that you did the mini offer. And do you think the mini offer was worth it? Like, was it good data?
Uh, the mini offer was perfect for me because it gave me information that I needed to move forward, but it also let me validate the idea. And for anyone who's like thinking, well, I can't do a mini offer. I don't have a platform. I don't have this. I don't have it. All I had was an email list. And then I did it live. I hosted it on I think it was just like on a Zoom call. And I did it live. I had stuff that I created for them that I emailed to them. And I can't even remember how I accepted payment. It was some backwards, crazy way that like nothing was set up. I had nothing that I have set up currently to make things run smoothly and easily. I can't remember if I used PayPal or Stripe or it was some like back end thing. So if you're thinking to yourself, I want to create a course, but I can't dive in. I can't do all this stuff now. You don't have to your first time around. You can just like I just shoestringed it together and just randomly just tried to piecemeal things together. And
Okay.
it worked. It wasn't super successful by any means, but it gave me the confidence to move forward with the full course.
Yes, yes. Your first launch of anything does not have to be perfect. Just get it out there and test it out and see if it works and then use the data. And then every launch gets better and better and better. And you can add more things. I feel like a lot of people will look at these huge course creators who have huge courses and big launches and they're like, I'll never get there. Well, yeah, if you never start, you'll never get there, but you have to just start. And like you said, just throw it out there, see what happens, and then go from there. So that's awesome. So when you were doing this mini offer and you started the course, were you kind of DIYing everything at that point, or did you have any kind of like mentor?
So at the time, I think um, it was like a monthly thing in a membership that I was in.
Mm.
So it was basically it was like she was challenging us to go and do something more than what we were already doing.
Okay.
So I kind of just DIY'd it with, with some guidance and with some suggestions in that group, but I hadn't actually purchased a course on creating a course yet.
Right.
Um, After I did that mini offer, that's when I pursued like a course on creating a course.
Yeah. And do you feel like, you were kind of still in the beginning? I mean, you had a mini offer and you had launched it and made some money, but do you feel like that was a good time for you to start then looking for like a paid mentor, a paid course to kind of expedite the process of then launching the bigger course?
Probably would have done it sooner,
Yeah.
to be honest, because I would have, and especially like, and I said, you can just piece these things together, and you can. But then after the fact, it's like, okay, well, now I have to move all this stuff over. And then I ended up buying a cheaper course platform because it fit into my budget at the time. And then fast forward like a year and a half, and now I need to purchase a different one. And I wish that I would have taken those steps sooner to do things the right way.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any money and I was ambitious, and why not? So I just went for it.
Yeah. And I see people do it both ways, and I really don't feel like there's a wrong way. Like for me personally, I invested in Kajabi before I even launched the course. Not a lot of people do that, and Kajabi is expensive, so I don't always recommend that. And then some people they'll start with like, a less expensive platform, and then as their business grows, then they'll kind of migrate. And I think either way is fine. It's just like kind of your buying type, your personality type. Um, so yeah, either one. There's not like a right or wrong way to do it, but I do think that waiting until maybe you have some confidence and you at least know you have an offer that sells before you invest in like a higher ticket platform is probably feels better to a lot of people, which makes sense. Okay, so then you decided to start working with me and you joined my program, Hey Online Course. Can you kind of tell me when did you do that and kind of what led you to that decision?
Sure. So, right after I launched my mini offer, I worked with somebody else, and I feel like I've worked with kind of three main people throughout the course of my business, my online business, and I feel like each of them fit in exactly where and when I needed them.
Yes.
So at that time, it was basically creating the course, putting the offer together, making the sales page, doing, all the stuff that goes with it. So I did have some guidance on that. I purchased a course, or I can't remember if it was a course or a membership, um, but I did that, launched it, and it was, I would say, mildly successful for my first launch. I made about $6,000 on my first launch, and then every launch thereafter was like worse than that. And I was like, wait a minute, something's not right here. I know that my course is more valuable than the sales that it's making is. And that's when I decided to work with Lindsay. And I actually did her one on one launch accelerator. So I have access to the course, but I also got like an extra set of eyes on what I was working on and one on one attention on that kind of stuff. So that's when I was like, okay, I know my course is good. People are telling me my course is good. The content's good. And then I see what they're creating from learning content in my course. And I'm like, that's exactly what my course is designed to do. It's so you can learn everything you want about it and then go and create your own stuff. I'm not just showing them how to create, okay, let's create this activity, now this activity.
Mhm.
So when I was seeing the stuff that they were creating, I'm like, okay, this doesn't match up with the sales. So that's when I decided to reach out to you and I was like, hey, let's go for this. And I had a monetary goal in mind as well, and that was one of the reasons that pushed me into that as well.
Yeah, and I like how you said like you saw the transformation your students were getting. And you're like, why isn't that translating into more sales? So
Mhm.
sometimes people are really good at teaching the concept. They're really passionate about whatever they're creating the course about, but it's the marketing and the launching piece that they're missing. And it's almost like you need 60% marketing, 40% content, because you could have the best online course in the world, but if you don't have the experience or the help with actually launching it the right way, then like you said, that your launches aren't going to go like you expect. And that sucks when you put in a ton of work and you know you have a really good course. So yeah, Steve was saying he worked with me in a program that I don't do very often, a one-on-one launch accelerator. And that's for people that they already have a course created. They just want help specifically with like the live launch aspect of it. So we worked through that. So can you tell us a little bit about how that launch went? You said you had a monetary goal. So what was the goal and then kind of how it went?
Okay, so the reason for the goal, and so I am a school teacher and I do this business on the side. I have other stuff that I do on the side too. I am very busy. I have two young boys at home and I want to be able to spend more time with them. And by splitting myself into so many jobs, it's like, okay, this is crazy. What am I doing to myself, stretching so thin? I kind of wanted to take something off my plate for this year. And I also felt like, as an educator, I felt like I'm not being as well received as I used to be. Like, I don't know if I'm getting stale or what's happening, but the students don't latch on to things that I'm teaching as much as they used to. So I felt like it was time for me to just kind of take a breather, take a step back, and go back to get some schooling and take some online classes. And so I am taking an educational sabbatical this year. So I'm taking these classes to help me become a better teacher so that I can go back and be just as enthusiastic as I was, years ago, and hopefully find new strategies to reach the students, because today's students aren't the same as, I've been a teacher. This is my 14th year. They're not even the same as like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and they're definitely not the same as they were 14 years ago. So the monetary goal was, I'm only going to make half of my teaching salary this year because I'm on educational sabbatical. So I wanted to make $30,000 so I could recoup that other half of my teaching salary. And so I was like, Lindsay, I got to make $30,000. I'm trying to take an educational sabbatical. And I didn't want to have to worry about the money aspect of it. I wanted to be able to go back to school and take some classes, but I didn't want to make that a burden on my family, because my wife had already taken off 2 years of her job. when she had both of our boys, which I wouldn't change any of that. But I was like, okay, well, now I want to be able to spend a little bit more time with them while I'm taking my classes. And I did my launch, and we almost doubled that $30,000 goal for my first like big launch.
Yeah. What was the final total, if you don't mind me?
I don't remember exactly. It was right around
Yeah,
55,000.
which is amazing. Yeah. So, okay. And I know people are going
And
to be like,
I
what did
and
you
for
do?
that one, I had all my payment plans went through, like everything. I didn't have anybody default on payments or anything like that.
Isn't that a good feeling, man? Okay, so and I'll definitely do some solo episodes in the future about kind of my strategy for live launching because it's a lot. Steve can tell you it's to do a big live launch, it's a lot of moving pieces and we don't have time to go into all of it here, but is there anything that stands out with your launch that you think made a difference, like that made you hit or double your goal?
So I had always done a live webinar, instead of this time I did a challenge. And I think that was that made a huge difference. I also, through your guidance and your help, I also worked on the selling component a lot. And I started to realize, like, okay, selling, I'm helping them when I'm selling to them. And that's something that I had so much trouble with because I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to come off as like I'm only providing free content because I want a sale. So I would say that those things are the things I had the most trouble with. And then also just running ads, I think helped accelerate that as well.
Yeah, and especially if you have like a time crunch and you don't have time to build your list organically, Facebook ads can really expedite that. And yeah, I like what you said about not feeling salesy, but also knowing that you're serving because when you're selling, you are serving if you have a course that has a transformation. And a lot of people struggle with that. So that's good that you really know that when you are selling your course, it's helping someone. You're not just taking their money, but they're getting a result from that. And then they can turn around and give it to their kids and have a better classroom experience, or they can sell it online and make a side hustle. So there's a lot that comes from your course, which is awesome. So, okay, so you had this huge launch, you did a challenge. How has that changed your life? How has it made an impact on your family? What's kind of been happening since then?
So the main thing is just kind of options. Like I said, I wanted to be able to take this time off without being pressed for any financial burden. I didn't want to put a financial burden on my family because I felt like I needed to go back and take more classes. So it just kind of provided me options to be able to do that so that because honestly, I don't know that that's a decision that I would have made if I didn't have the financials covered.
Yeah,
So it's just given us kind of options and flexibility.
that's so nice because so many people they work their job 9 to 5, or for teachers, 7 to 7, and then
Seven to 11.
yeah, 24/7, but they don't have the space to kind of make those bigger decisions for their family because their life is their job and they come home and they're tired and then they have to, deal with the kids and then get up and rinse and repeat. And yeah, having some, even if an online course is like a side hustle for you, just having that cushion there can really make a huge difference in your life. And I'm sure in your relationships, your marriage, your family, I'm sure your kids have seen a difference in you. Maybe you're a little less stressed and I mean, what more can you ask for, right?
I definitely am less stressed. But I mean, anyone out there who's listening who is a teacher, you would understand why a teacher that's on an educational sabbatical would be less stressed than a teacher who's not.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Oh, I love that. Okay, so what would you say to someone who's thinking about creating an online course, but they may feel overwhelmed or like they can't do it?
Um, I say, like, you're never going to be ready. You just aren't. And when I first sold my course, I wasn't ready, and I wasn't even physically ready. I didn't even have all the videos recorded. I think I had like maybe half of the first module. I was like, I want to sell this. I want to see if I can even sell this thing before I go making all this content. But you're never going to be ready. It kind of brings me to the first time when the first time I went down to Black Diamond
Mm.
snowboarding. I was with my cousin. I remember it very vividly. And it wasn't just like any black diamond, it was like the black diamond at the slopes that we were at. And I'm in Western PA, so it's not anything amazing. But there is one local spot here that's has decent sized hills. And I don't think I ever would have gone down that black diamond by myself. Like I wouldn't. But he was like, "All right, you're ready. Like you're never going to be ready. Just go." And I feel like that's the same way with an online course. You're never ready. You
Mm.
just have to go. So my cousin pretty much he didn't push me, but he basically like pushed me down this mountain, and I like tumbled and rolled down and slid on my butt the entire way. But after I got up, I was like, I went down it. It wasn't the way I wanted to go down, but I went down it. And with an online course, it's the same way. You just have to jump in because you're not going to be good at it the first time around. It's like when you have your first kid,
Yeah.
everything, it's like you feel like everything is a disaster all the time. But at the end of the day, you just have to sit back and say, like, okay, my kid's happy, my kid's healthy. Like, I did this, I can do this. And I feel like an online course, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Not the same thing as having a kid.
No,
Let
no.
me,
Way easier.
yeah,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean with the
If
analogy.
you're a parent listening, you can totally do an online course because it's a lot easier. Navigating parenthood. Yeah, I love that analogy. I think that's so good. Just do it. If you don't start, then you're never going to get to your goal. You have to just start and figure it out. My business mentor, Rachel Lynn, she always says, take messy action. Instead of just waiting forever, just take some action. And it's going to be messy, but it's going to be fine. And you learn and then you improve over time. So I love that. And
And you're
then,
not going to be successful like the first time around, and that's okay.
yes. And do you think having like a mentor, and not necessarily me, but someone that's like coaching you or a program, do you think that makes a big difference?
I definitely think it's worth it as far as like you could probably DIY, watch a whole bunch of YouTube videos and Google everything, but the amount of time that you would put into that, you're going to save by just having it all packaged up by somebody, whether it's Lindsay's course or somebody else's course. They've already done it, they've gone through it, they've packaged it up and said, like, okay, here's what you do with a course. It, I would highly recommend doing that over just DIY. If you want to have the results like I had for my mini offer, then DIY away. Um, but it gets really messy.
Yeah. And just having, yeah, like you said, someone that has done it before, and then they've put the information in the right order and it's all organized for you because YouTube is not organized for you,
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's going to take a lot longer. So,
And it's one of those things that you don't even know what you don't know.
yes, that's true too.
So you could go in and think you have everything in order, you have everything working, and then you don't even have, maybe you forgot to put the email sequence that they get when they purchase or something like that. You're not going to think to Google everything because you don't even know what to Google.
Yeah. There's a lot of moving pieces for sure. Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been so much fun. So, just one last question. What is one act of generosity that you have done or plan to do lately?
So lately, I've been on my educational sabbatical, but my classes actually didn't start yet. So I'm kind of have like this little limbo area where I have it's close to a month after summer, and my wife's a teacher as well. So I've just been really trying to, in between this time where my classes haven't started yet, I'm just really trying to take on more of the roles that and jobs at home that she usually does. And a lot of it is like stereotypical stuff, like she does laundry and cleaning, and I do like yard work. And I cook. We probably cook about 50-50, but I've been trying to really take on a lot of the jobs that she would normally do, like the laundry, the cleaning. I asked her, I'm like, hey, what, I know there's probably stuff that you do that I don't even know that you do. So I asked her to just tell me so that I could just make a list and then just check it off each week as I go. So I've just been trying to give back because I feel like we were both so busy all the time, working full time and then having two kids, that this sabbatical is now allowing me, at least until my classes start, to lighten her load a little bit too, so that she feels some of that as well. some of that stress taken away.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you have the space to do that now because of this course and because you can take this sabbatical. Because do you think you would have still been able to take the sabbatical if you didn't have this big launch, or would it just have been a big financial strain on your family?
It would have been excuse me, it would have been a financial strain. Could I have? Yes. I
Yeah.
mean, I have other streams of revenue coming in. My online course isn't the only thing that is generating money for me. So I could have made it work, but I don't know that it would have been as easy to say, like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah. That's awesome. Awesome, Steve. Well, thank you so much. This has been great. So tell people, let's say we have some teachers listening and they want to learn all things Google Sheets. How can they find you?
So if you're interested in learning more about Google Sheets because you are a teacher, then you can head over to stevebuch.com/training. And I have a 15-minute training. You could create your first activity, or if you've made activities with Google Sheets before, I definitely still recommend checking it out because it's actually easier than a lot of people think. When they YouTube stuff, they get some crazy backwards way of doing stuff. So if you want to check that out, it's stevebuch.com/training, and my name is spelled Buch, not Book.
Yeah.
And
We'll put the link in the show notes too, so you can click it. And then are you on Instagram?
yeah, if you want to connect with me over on Instagram, I'm the Steve Buch, and I'm nowhere near important enough of a person to be the Steve Buch, but Steve Buch was already taken. And whenever I was trying to figure out which one to use, Lindsay's like, "Yeah, you're definitely important enough to be the Steve Buch." So that's
Confident.
where you can connect with me over there.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Steve. And we will send all the teachers your way.
All right, sounds good. Good luck with anyone who's trying to create an online course.